Now, this first question comes from a nail professional in San Jose, California, who asked me one of my favorite questions of the year. She asked me this: why is it every time you talk about activist groups for cosmetics, you call them fear-based and you disagree with just about everything they say? Somebody from one of these groups gave a talk at my school, and she said some things that made a lot of sense to me. I don't know why you don't work together. Have you ever tried to talk to them? Well, this person asking this question will be surprised to learn that I started working with activist groups in the cosmetic field about 15 years ago. Now, during that time, I've learned a lot about how they operate, as well as their true motives and ultimate goals. And I have some concerns that I've expressed in other Face-to-Face with Doug Schoon videos. Now, actually, I should say I've tried to work with these groups, but I've not been very successful. I've reached out to several of them, and when they first formed, and to offer to work directly with them. Now, I've been to several of their meetings, which they graciously invited me to attend, and they were very nice, but they made it pretty clear that they have very little interest in working together because I don't agree with their tactics, methods, or their information. Now, I didn't take it personally, since they did the same to another well-known and highly respected scientist in the nail industry, Dr. Paul Bryson from OPI. Perhaps this will change in the future. I hope so. It would be better for all concerned if we work together. Why would I want to work with cosmetic activists? I believe I could help them see a better way to improve safety in the salon industry. They don't need to attack with misinformation and cleverly worded scare tactics based on distortions of the fact. These have become their weapons of choice, and they don't seem to want to abandon these destructive methods. I suspect it's because they don't have a proper understanding of the facts, and because some of them are pretty close-minded. As a result, they ignore any information they don't like, even when confronted with facts to the contrary. I know, I've tried, and not gotten very far by explaining facts they aren't interested in hearing. I disagree with their use of irrational fear and deceptive tactics to force a change of thinking or to change the rules and regulations. The ends doesn't justify the means, and these misguided tactics needlessly frighten people and create unwarranted alarm. Even so, I do agree with some of the important points that these groups make. So by working together, we could achieve the goal of making salons safer and ensuring safe working conditions for all salon workers. Here's the difference in our approaches to make salons safer. Fear-based activist groups want the power to demonize and ban products, services, and ingredients so they can eventually eliminate certain types of services such as liquid and powder artificial nails. I believe the evidence shows these ingredients, products, and services are safe when used and performed properly. So the goal should be to teach professionals how to work safely and properly, not to take things away. We should do a better job teaching nail technicians how to work safely. That's what's missing. We all know that automobiles can be dangerous, but we don't ban them. Instead, we teach people how to drive more safely, look both ways before crossing the street, etc. It seems to me that these groups have already made up their minds and they don't want to listen to the facts. They're used to doing all the talking and don't want to listen. Why? Because they fear the facts. They know that that's why they refuse to listen to knowledgeable scientists in the nail industry and try to keep us out of every discussion where salon safety is involved. They don't want to hear the facts. They're contrary to what they believe. I once asked someone in one of these groups why they kept refusing to work with me or any other scientists in the industry. I said, after all, we want the same thing, to make salons safer. Their honest reply caught me off guard, and at first I didn't know what to say, and I'm pretty rarely speechless. I was told this: no, we don't want the same thing. You want to teach nail technicians how to work safely with toxics. We don't want to teach them that. We want to eliminate all the toxics. What could I say to that? They don't believe in safety training or the use of ventilation or other safety equipment. To them, these are just an excuse to allow nail technicians to be exposed to so-called toxics, which I think is pretty silly if you think about it. These fear-based activist groups paint everything black and white. They label chemicals as good or bad, and bad means zero tolerance. And I was once told by one of these people, some of these people in these groups, that there was no safe level for any toxic substance, which really is a ludicrous statement based on a lack of knowledge. Ingesting excessive amounts of salt is sure going to be harmful to people, but swimming in salt water is not harmful, and swallowing a little bit of salt water from time to time is perfectly safe. I know, I surf, and I've swallowed lots of salt water, and I'm fine. Many things that are toxic in high concentrations are safe in low concentrations. But the goal of these groups is to demonize substances and force their elimination. My approach is different. I'll teach you how to work safely and give you the facts and knowledge you need so you can avoid the risks. Even pure water can be risky if used incorrectly. Stick your head in a bucket of pure mountain spring water and you'll find out that this deadly chemical kills in just a few minutes. Is water scary stuff that should be banned? Just because water is linked to the death of millions and we know it can kill, that doesn't mean that it will. What can happen is very different from what will happen. It's all about how water is used, right? Now, some aromatherapy oils contain traces of naturally occurring carcinogens, as do many natural substances such as apples, tomatoes, lobsters, mushrooms, and dozens of other foods. Now, does this mean that aromatherapy oils and apples cause cancer? Of course not. It would be extremely unlikely, but not impossible. Scientifically speaking, I can't say there is zero risk from using aromatherapy oils because of the tiny traces of carcinogens, even though cancer is extremely unlikely at such small concentrations. The risk may be trivial and not even important to consider, but no scientist would ever say the risk is zero. Now, that's a favorite trick often used by fear-based activists. They often trick the public by getting experts to admit there is a risk, knowing the risk can never be zero. An asteroid could hit our planet while I'm filming this, but it's not very likely at all. And it's pretty safe to say that I'm not concerned with the minuscule possibility that it could happen. The risks are not zero, but pretty close to zero. So what? We live in a risky world, and we shouldn't waste our time worrying about unlikely risk. It's pretty obvious that using aromatherapy oil is probably a lot safer than driving a bicycle, and we give bicycles to children. Are we crazy? Bicycles kill, and if they don't, they've been linked to brain damage and paralysis. Or do we put aside this nonsense and get real? Instead of forbidding bicycles, we teach children how to safely ride their bike. We make them wear helmets and obey some basic rules of bike riding. Isn't the issue really more about how we work with a product? In most cases, it's more important than which product we use. I worry it's just a matter of time before these groups begin to unfairly attack aromatherapy oils as well. Fear-based activist groups use deception as a tool to frighten people into their way of thinking. They don't like it when you don't agree with them, and they will simply shout you down, or as they've done to me and many others, they'll cut you out of the discussion and they'll work around you. In my view, this is all pretty silly, which is why I'm speaking up. We have to do something, or before we know it, 10 free nail polish won't be safe enough. And it will just get more ridiculous from that point on. These groups have created a tangled web of distortion and misleading information that can't be substantiated with any kind of fact-based information. So when faced with the facts, they just refuse to listen. They would rather rely on one or two poorly performed studies that amount to nothing more than junk science. That's contrary to all the majority of the existing evidence. I should say contrary to the majority of the existing scientific evidence. They use these ridiculous studies to dupe the media and well-meaning politicians. Both are favorite targets of these groups. Politicians in the media have the power to change or control the cosmetic industry and individual businesses, including salons. That's the real goal of these groups. They want to tell manufacturers what they can and cannot make, and salons what they can and cannot use. They want to control what distributors sell, and most importantly, they want to make sure that you only use things they think are safe and proper. They think they know best. But how could they? They refuse to work with the most knowledgeable scientific experts in the industry. Instead, they handpick their own experts who agree with them, and they provide these experts with money to fund their research. Of course, if that research turns out not to agree with what they're saying, these groups just bury the information and never let it be published. Another favorite tactic is to exaggerate extremely small risk and blow them hugely out of proportion. In this way, they can fool people into fearing something that's extremely unlikely to occur. Now, it's a fact. Golfers are sometimes killed by lightning while they're golfing, and this continues to happen. Now, what does this information mean? A, people shouldn't golf because they could be killed by lightning. Or B, to be on the safe side, golfers should avoid golfing if there's any chance of lightning. Otherwise, golf away. Now, what's the difference between A and B? These different approaches create a very different perception about golfing. The first one says that golfing is far too dangerous because there have been deaths by electrocution. I know that doesn't make any sense if you think about it, which is why these groups don't want you to think about it. They know that if you start to know too much, you might start thinking logically, and that's no fun when you're pushing irrational fear. Now, to continue the analogy, a fear-based group would say this: we can't wait for more studies. Golf should be banned for public safety reasons. Not another innocent victim should die while practicing this clearly dangerous sport. Or perhaps we should take a more reasonable approach, such as to say, golfing is safe, but you need to follow some basic rules of safety. For instance, discontinue golfing if there's any chance of lightning, and check with your local weather before golfing. Otherwise, have fun and please golf safely. This illustrates how easy it is to twist the facts to create irrational fear, and to use that fear to motivate others into doing what you want them to do. So the next time you get an email about the latest toxic scare, accompanied by a donate money here button to send where you're supposed to send your donations, please don't do it. They'll just use this money to needlessly frighten your friends and customers. If you read or hear any of this fear-based nonsense about nails or nail products, please ask the person giving you this information, are you working with the leading scientists in the nail industry? If not, why?